want to thank Tony and Michelle Butita for hosting us today in their lovely home. So thank you to both of you. And I want to start off by a cheer. So if you have your glass or your bottle or your bottles, let's all cheer to 45 years of life. So let's talk a little bit about 1973. I had to take some notes because I wasn't even born yet, and whoever laughed. Really? Okay, I'm going to remember that.
I was 5.
I'm going to remember that from all of you. All right, 1973. U.S. involvement in Vietnam was ending with the signing of the Paris Peace Accords. CBS sold the Yankees for $10 million, $3 million more than they paid for them. Point Mugu was rocked with a 5.8 earthquake. Watergate became a word and a thing. The first handheld cell phone call was made from New York. The World Trade Center opened. And the price of gasoline was, anybody know what it was in 1973?
39 cents.
I told you that today. 39 cents a gallon, and boy, were people angry and complaining about that. It would double the next year, by the way, to 55 cents. And in 1973, a young man named Gary Brainard started working at KCOP as a freelance photographer. He was only 20 years old. Within a year, on July the 8th, 1974, thanks to his strong work ethic and his natural talent, KCOP offered him a full-time job as a staff photographer. 10 years later, and 1 million feet of 60-millimeter film, Gary was promoted to chief photographer in 1984. By then, he was well on his way to racking up an impressive 3,000 plus hours on Newscopter 13. Who remembers Newscopter 13? As film turned to video and electronic news gathering, Gary was there learning and then teaching others this brand new technology. And I'm sure all of you were complaining bitterly about it. He was there for the kidnapping of Patty Hearst, his lens capturing that famous or infamous SLA shootout and the subsequent trial. From the 1984 Olympics, the decades of championship wins and losses, the LA Marathon, the first Interstate Bank high-rise fire. A lot of you were there, right side by side with Gary. I see you all nodding your heads. El Nino, La Nina, the Northridge earthquake, crime, fires, floods, and civil unrest. The celebrity trials, he was there. The building of the subways, the light rail, the busways in Los Angeles, the expansion of LAX. The history of a growing but often troubled metropolis, but always fabulous Los Angeles, captured for posterity by Gary Brainard, and of course, many of you also. Along with the always and entertaining, never-ending cycle of news, there was the politics. Gary's covered 6 Los Angeles mayors, including Sam Yorty. 9 U.S. presidential visits to Los Angeles, starting with Richard Nixon. Gary's work helped keep Southern California informed, and his work didn't go unnoticed. Gary has been honored with 8 Emmys, 3 Golden Mikes, 2 AP Awards, and very numerous awards from the Press Photographers Association of Greater Los Angeles. Now, as any news photographer or reporter will tell you, news gathering is not glamorous. A lot of people think our job, it's like that meme, what people think we do and what we really do. We spend most of our days looking for a public bathroom to use. That's for the reporters, right? The cameramen always seem to go to the bathroom 17 times in the back of the news van. I don't know.
We're looking for a cake.
Yeah, exactly. In a red Solo cup.
Yeah.
I probably taught Tony that in the red Solo cup.
The older we get, we slept about 22 times now.
News gathering has a lot of risks. Like the time Gary was driving through South LA with his window down and someone decided to greet him with a lit flare, throwing it through the window and right into his lap. To this day, Gary does not drive with his window down any longer. Or that fateful February 2nd in 1988. Remember that day?
I do.
North Hollywood. He was working on a story, and he didn't know, but a young gang member, as part of his initiation, shot him in the back. It was a pellet gun, but it broke the skin, and he ended up going to the hospital. Luckily, Gary was wearing a very heavy jacket that day that actually caught the bullet in the jacket. So that pellet bullet hit his skin, ruptured his skin, but stayed in the jacket. So it was a lucky day, but he did go to the hospital for that. He's been spit on, cursed at, and threatened. His camera shoved into his face. But probably the most dangerous story he's ever covered was a top story here in Los Angeles. I know you're going to be familiar with this. Very, very important stuff. He was covering the Kardashians. One of their stores had been robbed, and that is where, outside in West Hollywood, a woman walked right up to Gary in front of all his fellow photographers and reporters, and holding her machete only inches from his camera and his face, threatened to kill him. And that's on that video that's playing, that YouTube video. If you didn't get a chance to see it here, you can catch it on YouTube, but you can see, because of course Gary, being the professional, being threatened that he was going to be killed, kept rolling, or started rolling on this woman.
Money shot.
He got the money shot. Of course, Gary, you all know Gary, he looked at her, she said, "I'm going to kill you," and he said, "It's all good." She was later arrested, by the way. We all know also that Gary is an extremely talented still photographer, and as far back as he can remember, he's always had a camera in his hands. While other kids were playing cops and robbers, guess what Gary was doing? He was taking their picture. He also converted an outside kennel at his house into a dark room for processing and printing, and he lovingly built most of his equipment, his darkroom equipment. As he says, he's always enjoyed creating images rather than just capturing them. But Gary says, and I'll let him say it in his own words, of course, being the modest guy he is, because if you've worked with Gary, you know how modest he is. His biggest honor has always been being able to see and tell the story of Los Angeles and the people who live here. It's all good.
It's all good.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Brainard. Over 45 years of covering Los Angeles news. And Tony Butita, I don't know if you have a story you want to share, because you were, 20 years old?
Yeah, I started at KCOP when I was 22, maybe. And first I was stuck in a car with Bob Quinlan, who also didn't like the windows down and didn't believe in air conditioning. And then I switched over to Gary, who taught me tons of stuff. I learned, I don't know, everything about being a news photographer. Before that, I was a sound man at CNN, and I did a little bit of shooting. I got hired over at KCOP and learned a ton from Gary, just driving around town. And what did we used to call that? Photo 7?
Yeah.
So that was back when we had 2-man crews, which was rare, sometimes 3. So it was me and Gary running around at night, and he taught me a ton of stuff. So you've been a great friend and great mentor.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Speech!
Gary Brainard.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you to all my friends for coming. All my life experience is the sum of everything I've learned and time I've spent with all of you, my friends. And I really cherish my friends. I'm not much for being in front of the camera, but it was a wonderful career. I'm glad I had the opportunity to experience things that most of you here have experienced, but the life experience of being a news guy can't even be matched. It was time to retire. I was not as fast as I used to be, and the bones were aching a little bit. But even when we had this last earthquake, I was ready to go. You know, except for the heat. I wasn't about the heat. But you know what? It's all good, and I still get up every morning, get dressed like I'm going to work, except I don't make my lunch and I don't go to work. And so now every day is Saturday. So anyway, thank you for coming over. I'll still be posting photos on Facebook, and that's it. Thank you so much. I hope I got a picture with everybody. Thank you. I hope I got pictures with everybody. The moon's tomorrow night. Yes. Make sure you sign the thing. If there's no room, sign the back. And thank you for coming out. It's awesome.
Does anybody
so
want to hear a
awesome.
story? Does anybody have a good story? Jim Holcomb, ladies and gentlemen, police specialist.
I just got to tell you that when I retired from LAPD, I walked accidentally into a job at Channel 13, and I met this guy, Gary Brainard. And Gary taught me, I know nothing about news. I didn't even have 2 TVs in my house. And he taught me every single thing that I've ever learned about news, about photography, about stories, about the business. All came from this guy right here. And there were many times, as you will recall, in that helicopter, one time in particular where we were on a pursuit and our off-air went down. And they were coming to us, and I said, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" And he says, "I'll tap you on the shoulder, you start talking, and when I tap you, you wind it up." And I did, and I went home, and I thought, "Oh my God, what a horrible thing this is going to be." And I looked at it, and it was perfect. And it was all because of Gary. So many times this guy gave me the confidence to do what I needed to do, and he believed in me, and good guy.
Thank you.
Very good.
Jim was my pilot for most of those 3,000 hours. So many stories now, I don't specifically remember a lot of them.
We were in South LA. We had an exclusive on a female basketball player that had
Oh, yes, I
attacked
remember that
another
now.
female basketball player violently and sexually, maybe. And we were getting to B-roll of the shot, and this man from the neighborhood came over. I was inside the van, and I hear this voice say, "You're not welcome here, get out." And I also hear this voice go, "It's all good." It's all good. So I got the microphone, the Fox 11 microphone. I used to always, when it was a dangerous situation, I used to always turn it upside down so the battery pack was on the top because I thought it'd be heavier if I had to hit somebody. So I come around the corner and Gary's like, "It's all good, Gigi, it's all good." And I'm like, huh? Who's gonna mess with my Gary, you know? And he's like, "It's all good." And the guy just, it was like this magical shield of "it's all good." He just stood down and backed up like, "Oh, it's Gary Brainard. Oh, it's all good. It's all good, man." And he left us alone.
I do have one little story. When I got my job staff, the news director, Dan Tompkins, I don't know how many of you met or know Dan, he told me the reason he gave me the job was because I was too big to push over. And so, I was able to hold the camera above the crowd, and pretty stable guy, and very few people pushed me around.
I was with Gary in 1974. I was only 12 at the time, but when Dan Tompkins hired Gary, and I still remember him talking to you about start with a wide shot and explaining a wide shot. And then our careers took different paths, and I spent a lot of time at CBS and then KTLA. And Gary has something in common with a legend from KTLA, Stan Chambers. You will never find anybody say something negative about him. In a business that goes by gossip and everything else, Gary's truly beloved, and it's wonderful to work with.
Thank you, my friend. All good.
Ken Davis.
Okay.
All right, Gary.
Oh my goodness. Stefan.
Stephen Coleman, another legend.
My good friend Gary. Good friend Gary. So there's a bunch of us that like to go out and take still photographs. And we've been doing this, I don't know how long now.
Wow.
6 to 10 years, on and off, and we love it. We enjoy the heck out of it. And talk about the news animal that's still in this guy. When the 6.4 hit, I learned it off of Facebook because I was driving to an assignment. When I got close to where I was going, I wanted to check the Facebook page and see what was going on. And all of a sudden, he's reporting the whole thing. So I learned of the earthquake from Gary.
Oh my goodness.
And then he kept going and kept going throughout the day. And finally, when I got home that night, I called him and I teased him about it. I said, you know, you were just like in your element. You know, his blood was flowing. I mean, he was hot. He was ready to go. And he was just like really on top of it. And, you know, I'm proud of Gary. You know, I'm proud of, you know, 45 years is a long time. And I don't think you brought it, but he told me a story that early in his career, Patty Hearst, you didn't bring the audio, right?
Oh, I didn't bring the audio.
Okay, so
Yeah.
his job, and he can explain it better, but the best that I understood was there would be a daily release of audio from Patty Hearst to a TV station here in Los Angeles, and then all the guys would go pick it up and it would be played. He would, you know, take it back to a station, and it was Patty Hearst talking while she was kidnapped. Well, he still has the audio tape from that historic period in time, and he was telling me about that, and you know, he goes way back. He goes way back into the history of this city, and I just wanted to acknowledge that and how proud I am of him.
Thank you.
For getting out when he did, healthy, and with a good future in front of him. And all right, I'm going to spill the beans what we're doing Monday.
Yes. Go ahead.
Monday, we're hopping in the vehicles and we're going up to Toronto and go in search of earthquake fault lines.
And photo possibilities.
And photo possibilities. So we want to go to Toronto and check it out for ourselves, you know, not under the gun, not under the news constraints. And then recently we've been enjoying ourselves going up to Star Wars Canyon. And that's a canyon in Death Valley, far west side of Death Valley, where the military jet flies through this canyon. And so it's going to be hot, but we're going to, you know, at least try to get a day under our belt. I've been up there, I don't know, 5-6 times. Gary's been up there a couple of times. Nick is still waiting to get up there. He wants to get up there, but a lot of us like to go up there, and it's really a challenge, but it's a lot of fun. And so anyway, I just wanted to say a few words on behalf of Gary.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to say a couple of words.
Okay, Mondo.
I love this guy. He's a terrific photographer, but most of all, he's a terrific human being.
Thank you.
He's the sweetest human being and great photographer, but the best steward that I actually ever had.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we will be all hot. They're taking this away from us. They're taking that away from us. They want to do this. We call Gary at 2 a.m. in the morning, 5 a.m., 12 noon, any time of the day, and Gary will be, don't worry about it. It's all good. And he knew how to bring us down, and I don't think a lot of people appreciate that. He negotiated every contract at KCOP, at KTTV, and that's not very easy. And he has to get against those wolves every time, but he's a big bear, and we love him.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend. My goodness.
I wouldn't miss this for the world.
Thank you. Good to
This
see
guy is the giant in the television business, and you're going to be really missed, buddy. It's not going to be the same out in the field without
Thank you.
Gary and I go back since KCOP days. And I remember when I first got there, I was coming from Telemundo, and Gary kind of eased me in here, you know, and just do your thing, Bravo, and do it well. So we went through the riots together with Hal Eisner and everybody, and
Oh, where's that?
I love this guy.
Where's that guy?
Thank you, my
Gonna
friend.
miss you, man.
I'm gonna miss you too.
How do you explain love for somebody? Sorry, David. I work with Gary at 13 also on the assignment desk. We had a really jerky assignment manager. Won't say his name, RV or their initials.
Yes.
But Gary was always there having my back, always gave me tips. And I went many years without seeing Gary. Then I saw him at a photo exhibit in Monrovia maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And then you see him and you just feel love for him. And right now, sitting there watching him, he's, you know, soaking it all in. And then just look at this face. Look at those eyes. I'm serious. Look at those gentle eyes. How can you not love the soul that comes out from that?
Thank you.
Okay, but okay, the next thing is politically incorrect. I'm sorry. I was telling David. So when I think about Gary Brainard, I think about love, but I also think of this funny little story he told me. He used to like watching those movies about little people being cowboys. Remember?
Oh yeah.
So I always remember
The Terror of Tiny Towns was an all-midget western. In case you want to catch it. It's hilarious.
When you work on the assignment desk, you soak in so much pain and negativity, so sometimes you just cling on to the funny things and things you imagine, and that was one of the things. It's just the tiny town of these western tiny people. But anyway, I love Gary, but again, look at this gentle soul.
Thank you.
And
Oh
so
my
talented, right? Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Love you, love you,
Love
love you.
you too. Thank you. Thank you. My goodness. I'm blown away. Just totally blown away. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. And I was at Kenny Moore's party last week, and what I told the people there, and is what I'm going to tell all you, our community is really small. So I'm not saying goodbye, I'm on my way out of here to anybody, because our paths are going to keep on crossing. It's just, you know, parties and other things, and you know, I'm not going to show up at news stories, things like that, like another Gary I know.
Oh yeah.
Not being critical of Gary, he brought me plenty of cold water. But you know, if something's happening in the neighborhood, I might show up there.
Gary, why don't you introduce have your mom stand up?
This is my mom, Virginia.
Virginia, come on over with Gary.
So, Mrs. Brainard, what would you like to say about your son?
You've all said it. And I sure don't want to say the things he doesn't want me to.
Oh, please
Well,
do.
we want you to say
Please
that.
do.
It's all good, Mom.
I was going to say that. I've been very lucky. I have 3 children, and I've been very lucky with all 3. They've all had a long career, all 3 of them. And I don't know what else to say except that God was good to me with the children that I have. And I appreciate that, and I give blessings today that I'm here to tell you that.
Yay!
Wonderful.
Where's Mark? Mark, get up there, Mark. This is Gary's brother, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Come here. All right.
Yes, and I do have a little story to tell you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm trying to think of things. And, you know, Gary working all these years at the same job, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. I'm working at the same job all these years, 40, 50 hours a week. And so once a year, we always take a weekend and go camping up in Big Pine Creek. So we drive together up there, and it's it's brother time to talk about things. And I guarantee you that every time I go with him, I get an unbelievable history lesson on the history of California, history of Los Angeles, and I wouldn't want it any other way. He has more information about this state and this town than anybody I know. And, you know, I'm just so proud of him. Just so proud of you, Gary. Thank you.
We also have Gary's sister.
Yes, I am.
Here's your drink.
Oh, thank you.
Hi everybody. I'm trying so hard to not cry because we love Gary and I know he's a wonderful guy, but I cannot believe how moved I am. You are a gentle giant and people adore you. I mean, I know that we do, but just to see how far reaching it is just unbelievable. I feel like I've learned a little bit more about you today. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know you've been doing this thing you've been doing forever. But again, the way our paths cross and so many lives that you've touched. And I see the Emmys at home and the awards, and I know, there Gary was with the OJ chase, and I know bits and pieces, but you guys have shared with me today a part of it I never could have gotten from watching the news. And talk about a news hound. I don't know, this woman has got to see her news. I have never been able to break her from that because it's all interconnected with the family. It's a big part of who we are. So thank you. Bless you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, and just on behalf of all of us who aren't photographers, and to all the photographers here, because it's so nice to see so many of you, and it's a thankless job. And as a reporter, I know it's a thankless job, so I want to thank all of you for the amazing work you all do every single day, and while lugging about 50 pounds of equipment while doing it. So thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, the legend has retired.
One last thing I want to tell you. I will tell you this, and I've told it so many times to Gary, and you can ask any of the photographers that are out at the airport. I work at the airport at LAX, and one thing I do for all the photographers, you show up, you need to park somewhere, you park there. You need to get out and go get some B-roll. I don't care if I got to watch your truck, you're there. You need to go somewhere, I put you in the car when it's raining, I take you where you need to go, because as far as I'm concerned, and no slight against reporters, but I will tell you that photographers to me are the backbone of the news business, the absolute backbone.
Thank you.
And that's all because of Gary.
What? Gary, smile, everyone.
Emmy winner!
I told you he's trash. I love it.
All right.
I love
Gary and
Nick.
Nick.
Everybody out. Roger's here. Roger's here.
We are everywhere. That's the only king.
Hi, Demir.
That's pretty cool.
Hey, I'm reading you on Facebook. You what? I'm reading you on Facebook. Good. Nice Hey, Gary, the amazing. We after when he are now retired, say, Gary, we go to the moon, to the bird. Say, okay, Nikki, I'm free now.
What the heck is that?
It's too small to be a camera.
Okay.
What can I tell you about Gary? Gary is very kind and patient with everybody, including me when I was a newbie on the desk at Fox. And I'm eternally grateful to him for always being kind, even though I had really dumb questions regarding PIOs or the like that. And so I wish Gary the absolute best of luck. I'm so excited for him. I can't wait to say that I'm retiring too. I've got some time. He's right there, so I'm going to keep it until
What's going on there, Gary?
Not much, man. Just navigating it. It's all good.
Do you have any words you'd like to say for Gary?
For Gary. I made it.
This is where you guys are.
I made it.
So it was this guy right here, Gary Brainard, that actually started me in the business. Funny story, I was trying to get my start in the business. I was working at a production company and I was sweeping up out in front. Gary drove by in his station wagon at the time, the news car, and said, rolled down the window and said, hey Steve, I see you finally got a job in Hollywood. That was really nice, Gary, but he made up for it over the years. He's a good guy.
The best brother in the world, that's for sure. So proud of him. Yeah. I remember his first day. And back at KCOP 13 when he started working there. And I'm so glad to kind of been on him, on the journey with him. So really proud of him. Gary, proud of you.
Do you remember we used to...
Gary, I'm not going to be very far behind you. We had this discussion already. I don't even think I'm as old as you are, but I'm not going to get into that. You have, and some other people I've talked to have encouraged me to finally pull the plug. I'm 69 years old. I can't believe I'm still doing this on a daily basis, but I'll be probably in the next 4 to 6 months joining you.
Gary, just like I said on your card, relax and enjoy the ride. All right, Gary, so I'm going to be a little sentimental. We first met when I was an apprentice in 1981.
and I was shooting film, and you were still shooting film. One of the few people that can still say we both were 16 millimeter people. We can black bag our stuff, you know, the whole bit. 400 feet, 12 minutes. Gary, you were always kind to me. You were always good to me out in the field when I was a young 21-year-old apprentice. Never forgot that. I carried that with a lot of interns and other people that I've had under me that came through. But thank you very much. You deserve, of course, you know, you deserve this retirement. But just thanks for being part of the LA big picture and recording all the history that you did for Los Angeles. And now you'll be able to go and take beautiful pictures and lock down some more beautiful moments. But really, thank you so much for being here. Take care.
Hey Gary, we're missing you out in the field, but I know you've officially retired, but we are definitely going to miss you on the big stories and your friendship and your kindness. Best of luck to you.
I remember Gary in 1986 when I first met him, and I met him here with this gentleman over here. So it was Glenn and Gary, and they both had like hair, dark hair and everything. They were really good crew.
Great trucks.
I love you, Gary.
Gary es un gabacho pero muy suave. Me gusta Gary.
So I met Gary at a style shoot of mine, and we've been best friends ever since. We go on shoots together, we travel together, and he's my favorite friend.
Hey, I took care of those morals charges on you in Louisiana, so don't worry about it.
Always fun.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, hope he has a good time. I know I am.
Gary? Yeah. How full is his bucket list? That's what I want to know. I did all my things already. I think I'm emptying my bucket list now. I'm taking stuff out of it. No more obligations. I'm getting rid of all those.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a message for Gary?
Oh, a message
for Gary.
Don't be late.
Don't be late.
What are you going to do now? He's going to be hanging around the house all day, bothering you.
I am very proud of all of my kids, and Gary was number one to start his career. Then this guy is number two, who has started his second career. My daughter's flight attendant, but she's in Oregon.
40 years,
so, keep going, Gary. I love you.
We love you, you know that. And I hope you have a wonderful retirement and do a lot, travel, do traveling. It really opens up your mind.
We love you, brother. Don't worry. Be happy.
Take lots of pictures.
Yes. Keep on
shooting.